Welcome to Keepin' It Real, where we feature entrepreneurs who are passionate about their business and have participated in our guest blog, shareyourstories.online. Today, we have a special guest with us, and we're going to talk about mentorship. Marg Hachey was previously the owner of Duocom Canada Inc, where she received recognition as one of Canada's 50 best managed private companies. Chatelaine and Profit magazine recognized Marg over a 10-year period as ranking in the top 10 of the top 100 women business owners in Canada. Today, Marg is currently the managing director of Grow Your Biz, an organization that builds peer-to-peer advisory groups for women entrepreneurs. Welcome.
Thank you, Trish. It's my pleasure.
Well, you know, Marg, you and I both believe in the concept of mentorship because collaborating with like-minded entrepreneurs can help us both personally and professionally. So in your experience, what do you think are the essential elements to building a successful mentoring relationship?
Well, there certainly are elements. I feel there are three of them. And first of all, it's a mentor. Then it's the protege, or some people refer to them as the mentee. And then it's the actual relationship.
Right.
And I think as we go through our business lives, we need different mentors at different stages. So really important.
That's really true because, you know, when we start out and we're an incubator business and we're just getting started, we have a totally different skill level to when we've been in business for 5 years or 10 years, and we start to acquire different skills. So, you know, what do you think makes for a good mentor? I mean, you know, you and I have connected on a number of wonderful levels. You've helped to launch folks' career. I mean, you were very kind to me when I wrote my book on mentoring, and you gave me actually my very first speaking gig when I spoke to the group of Grow Your Biz members, which was really wonderful. So what do you think makes for a good mentor?
You know, you need to look carefully at what you need in your business because, you know, as I said, we need different things at different stages. So it's more than just a successful individual. Right. You know, they really need to be the type of person that desires to help other people develop. Right. And that's really important. They need to be really current and very understand business. You know, it needs to be very relevant to what you need. Or they need to have organizational knowledge, you know, because sometimes, you know, we need mentorship even when we're in the corporate life, you know, to help us move forward. And that's more of a champion in the business. They also, a good mentor needs to be willing to share their own experiences, the good, the bad, and the ugly, you know, because you know, that hockey stick growth approach. Often there are ups and downs. I mean, let's be honest, business life, especially today, is a roller coaster ride. Yeah. So they really need to be able to talk the talk and walk the walk, to be perfectly honest.
Mm-hmm. So tell us, you know, how many years have you been an entrepreneur? When did you start your first company, as an example? What year was it?
Well, my first business, I was 10 years old.
Wow.
I'm definitely a serial entrepreneur.
Exactly.
My sister and I bred guppies, you know, the little tropical fish.
You're kidding.
No, and we sold them to Woolworths at a nickel each because those things breed like crazy.
Exactly.
And, unfortunately, we hadn't learned how to eliminate the middleman. Woolworths sold them for 19 cents. So we learned a lot from that experience as well. But I started my technology company in 1980. So a long time ago, and a very rare, you know, for a woman to own a tech company in 1980 was really rare. And so a lot of the mentors I had at that time were men.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I remember when I started my first company in 1993, and you know, I always say to folks, a mentor wore a blue suit and a red tie. You know, business consulting was in the incubator stage, and nobody had heard of a coach unless it was with a sports team. So, you know, we really, all of my contemporaries were out, you know, getting married and having babies, and I was on you know, trying to drum up the first sales to try to keep the company going. So Tell us a little bit about what it was like for you when you started as a woman in tech, because I mean, truly you were a maverick at that time.
Challenging, in a word, challenging. But I had a sales background, and I firmly believe that's very important in any organization. I always say nothing happens in any company until we sell something.
Yeah.
So very, very important. And, quite often it's just getting out there, getting known, and differentiating yourself. That was my key, almost a key to success. I was the new kid on the block. I was competing with the big boys. So I had to do things differently. And I started doing workshops and seminars, teaching people how to use the products we were selling. So it helped me create my own demand, if you will. So that's how I really got going initially.
That's a really cool concept, because, sometimes we get stuck on how do we just get out there and get started, like we've all heard the phrase that, every entrepreneur can remember the days when they started in the trenches with a great idea, but it's taking that great idea to the next level, which actually creates a business, right?
Exactly.
So did you have a corporate life per se before you actually started Duocom?
I did. I worked for a large multinational corporate. I learned a lot. But I realized, if I was going to work that hard, it was going to be for Marg.
Right.
Because I was working 60 to 90 hours a week. And I learned a lot, granted, lots of great skills that enabled me when I started my own business. But I decided if I'm going to work this hard, it's going to be for me. And that's really what precipitated me to start my own business.
What made you choose tech?
I had an opportunity. It's all about connections. I met someone who had a similar business. I was impressed with what they did. They were in a total different geography. And I thought, well, if they can do that there, I can do that here. So that was my opportunity. I actually initially bought a 3M dealership. I sold overhead projectors and transparency films. That's how I started. So 3M was a world-known brand.
Yeah.
And, they were known for Post-it notes and Scotch tape, but they also at that time made great overhead projectors, which was the communication tool in business and education for about 30 years.
Wow. Now I know that you sold that business, and that there's a little bit of a backstory, because you sold it and then you rebought it and then you sold it again. So tell us a little bit about why you decided to sell, and then, what precipitated you to get back into the same business again.
Well, I guess I always encourage business owners. The day you start your business is the day you start planning to sell it. So you prepare it. You make it as attractive as possible. Now, quite frankly, even though I share that information, I wasn't really thinking about selling the business when I started. I just wanted to get it going and growing.
Yeah.
But, we all have a number in the back of our head as to what we'd like to sell the business for.
Right.
And I was not ready to sell it. As I say, I started in 1980, and in 2000, I sold it. But this was a company from the US that had courted me for 2 years. And they finally hit the number, Trish.
Right. Everyone has a price, right?
Yes, unfortunately. And they did hire me to stay on. So this was great. I thought, okay, I can keep growing the business using someone else's money.
Right.
And so actually, I stayed on, but it only took them 3 years to bankrupt a $1.2 billion company.
Wow.
So pretty devastating. I mean, that was my baby. And I felt a responsibility to, the 180 people we employed. So I scrambled around and bought the business back. But for the full story, we need wine for that.
So tell me a little bit about, so I'll put myself in the position of looking for a mentor. So, I've been in business for a number of years, and, I'm stuck and I don't know how to get over that hurdle. I've got a barrier that I need to break, and I'm looking at my network, and I'm trying to find somebody that I can collaborate with. What are some of the things as a mentee that I should be looking for in the mentor that will really help me to sort of break some of those barriers?
Well, I think it's really important that you find a mentor that has, first of all, the availability and the ability. So it's not it's time and energy,
Right.
really important. I mean, we all know many successful entrepreneurs, but if we ask them, can you spend an hour or 2 hours a month with me, they'd be, oh my god, my calendar's jammed, like there's no way. So
Right.
they have to have that time and energy available. They've also got to be willing to share failures and personal experiences,
Mhm.
because that's how we learn. Like, it isn't all a bed of roses. We know that. I mean, look what a lot of us have been through with this coronavirus, with COVID right now.
Yeah.
Lots of challenges for lots of businesses. A mentor also needs to have a growth mindset, not a fixed mindset.
Right.
And they really have to have a learning attitude. Because, if you start mentoring someone, particularly if they're not in the same industry as you've been, you need to invest the time as a mentor to learn about their business, learn about their challenges, make an investment of time other than the actual time you spend mentoring one-on-one. So I think that's very important. A good mentor has to also have the ability to develop skills in others. So good, clear communication, the ability to have empathy, like really understand what that protege or mentee is going through so that you can encourage, support, and help them get over specific barriers.
That's really important. You make a good point because, okay, so, someone's called you out of the blue to have coffee and, the conversation is going in such a way that, you can get the feeling that there's going to be a great connection and you'd be able to help them out. But as the mentee, it's not all a one-way street. This is sort of a two-way relationship. So if you are going to mentor someone as a mentee, what type of skills or what type of things should you be expecting in that relationship?
Well, I think a good protege really is committed to expanding their own capabilities.
Right.
They're willing to learn, and good for them if they've been willing to ask for help. That's one thing we don't do enough of. When you need a pointer or you need some help, just ask. Like, it's always no until you ask, actually.
Okay.
I think they have to be receptive to new ideas. Quite often you'll suggest something and say, oh, I don't know if that's going to work. Try it. Be receptive. If it doesn't work, okay, we'll come up with something else. And they also have to be ready, willing, and able to commit to meeting on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
But I also want to caution, mentoring is not therapy. Whenever I used to do business strategy and coaching, I'd work with individuals very closely and I'd say, look, I'm not a marriage counselor. I'm not a therapist. So, if you need help in those areas, there are other people who are far superior. I'm here to help you with your business. And I think as long as you draw those lines when you're starting a relationship, that's what makes it more successful, because you're both on the same page.
Yeah, that's a really good point because we need to be really clear about what the objectives are, right? I mean, it's no bit different than building a strategy or a strategic plan for your business. You know what your vision is, you know what your core values are, you're in touch with your passion, and you've got a vision of where you want to end up. And I would think that the mentor-mentee relationship is no different, right? Because you're both investing time and energy. So let's make the best and the most of the time that you're going to spend together.
Absolutely. Any relationship needs to be managed and nurtured.
Right.
It's like getting to know each other, taking the time to really understand what each person needs from this relationship. And that takes time. It's like building a relationship with a customer. That's very important too. The first meeting, they don't really know you. So important, because people buy from people they like too. So very, very important. It's almost like a joint venture, being a mentor and a protege or mentee.
Yeah.
Both parties need to actively attend.
Yes.
And I think it's really important initially to adopt some simple best practices. Discuss the structure of the relationship. Both parties need to understand the purpose and the focus of the mentoring.
Right.
I think that's really important.
When do you typically think that someone should reach out to a mentor within their business career? Like, is there a particular time or, challenge or solution that they're looking for, or is it just basically on their own growth scale?
I think it's important for all of us to have mentors at every stage of business, Trish. Because we have different challenges at different times. Right. When you're starting out, it's all the, we don't know what we don't know. Right. Going through startup, should I just be a registered company or should I be a corporation? It's those types of questions. And that's where we need to surround ourselves with not only mentors, but the professionals. I always say, girl's best friend in business is her banker, her lawyer, her accountant, and her hairdresser. And it truly depends on the day of who's most important, right? But we need to surround ourselves with those people. And mentors come and go.
Yes.
And quite often there's a life expectancy of a mentor. I mean, maybe initially I would have a mentor who's really good at sales capacities. How do we expand? How do we scale our business to grow? So that's a different type of mentor. But then as we grow, we hire, then we need to have people that are versed in HR, human resources, because then things become very different in a business. When it's just you starting out as a solopreneur, all you have to worry about is yourself.
Right.
The minute you hire the first person, guess what? You're working for them too.
Yeah, that's
because you've got to now generate enough revenue to cover this person's salary.
Yeah.
So life changes. So as it changes and we go through the different stages of business, we need different people to help us.
I think you make a really good point because not only are there different life stages and personal stages that we go through that affect our business, but we may find that at some point in time we end up becoming a mentor to somebody else, right? The sort
Absolutely.
of paying it forward concept.
That's right.
That becomes really important because, to give each other a leg up and to empower each other to be successful also means that at some point in time, if somebody reaches out to you and has that ask, that you're prepared to follow through and be a mentor for someone else.
Yes, very true. I started mentoring in, I think it was about late 80s, early 90s. Someone asked me if I'd become involved in, it was a structured mentoring called Step Ahead. It was a program where they brought on relatively young businesses and then they asked mentors to come in. So it was a 1-year-long program. So it had a beginning and it had an end, and we met once a month. And they brought in experts in different areas. So it was really interesting. And, the first woman business owner I mentored during that time, we grew her business 35%. Trish, I was more excited than she was. And I think that's why I really enjoy, doing what I do today at Grow Your Biz, because that's what feeds me now, seeing those other women be successful. Yeah. And really helping them excel and just giving them different ideas. I mean, that's really what mentoring is all about, having you look at things from a different perspective.
Right. Well, one of the things that we talk about in the guest blog, and as you're familiar with Share Your Stories, we have now over 150 entrepreneurial stories on the site. And one of the things that we ask each of those entrepreneurs to share is their 3 words of advice. So I'm going to put you on the spot and I'm going to ask you what your 3 words of advice would be to the viewing and listening audience that have joined us today, who may be starting their own business, they may be well established, or they may just have a great idea. What would be 3 words of advice that you'd give?
3 words. Oh my goodness. So many to choose from. Well, the first one I'd say is ask. As I said earlier, really important. Always know until you ask.
Yeah.
And then the next I think you have to be willing to change. That would be my next word, change. Don't be so set in your ways that you can't be flexible. Be willing to change. And I know I always joke about it, but no one likes change but a wet baby. But when I had a tech company, if we didn't change, we would die.
Yes.
You have to keep moving forward.
Yeah.
And the third word, I think it's adaptable. We've all had to change and be adaptable. And so that probably ties in with change, but we've had to change and be adaptable during this challenging time that we've all been facing. Right. So that would be my 3 words: ask, change, and adaptability.
Well, Marg, I want to really thank you for taking the time. There's nothing better than speaking with a woman who's kind of been in the trenches and really has been a maverick as an entrepreneur for women. So I really thank you for being the poster child for all of us who are following behind you in your footsteps as an entrepreneur. We really do appreciate everything that you've done in helping us break some barriers to success. So in today's session of Keeping It Real, I certainly hope that we've had an opportunity to not only introduce you to the person behind the logo, but provide you with some inspiration from someone like Marg, who's been an entrepreneur for a number of years. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Trish. My pleasure.
Everything is not enough. Feeling out by the ocean. Among all those white hot sands, where every sunrise is just for you. So come along and take